Tuesday, July 16, the Lord of the Sabbath. In Mark 2, verses 23 and 24, the Pharisees accuse the disciples of breaking the Sabbath. According to Jewish tradition, 39 forms of labour were forbidden on the Sabbath, which in the Pharisees' minds includes what the disciples had done. Read Mark chapter 2, verses 23 to 28. How does Jesus counter the charge brought by the Pharisees? Beginning at verse 23 in Mark chapter 2, we read, "One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, 'Look, why are you doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?' He answered, 'Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar, the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he gave also some to his companions. Then he said to them, 'The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath.'" Jesus responds with the story of David's eating the sacred showbread in 1 Samuel 21, verses 1 to 6. Let's just read that. "David went to Nob to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech trembled when he met him and asked, 'Why are you alone? Why is no one with you?' David answered Ahimelech the priest, 'The king sent me on a mission and said to me, "No one is to know anything about the mission I am sending you on. As for my men, I have told them to meet me at a certain place. Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever you can find." But the priest answered David, "I don't have any ordinary bread on hand. However, there is some consecrated bread here, provided the men have kept themselves from women." David replied, "Indeed, women have been kept from us as usual whenever I set out. The men's bodies are holy, even on missions that are not holy. How much more so today?" So the priest gave him the consecrated bread, since there was no bread there except the bread of the presence that had been removed from before the Lord and replaced by hot bread on the day it was taken away. The showbread was removed on the Sabbath, so David's journey may well have been an emergency escape on the Sabbath. Jesus argues that if David and his men were justified in eating the showbread, then Jesus' disciples are justified in plucking and eating grain. Jesus further indicates that the Sabbath was made for the benefit of humanity, not the other way round, and that the basis for his claim is that he is the Lord of the Sabbath. Read Mark 3, verses 1 to 6. How does this story illustrate Jesus' point that the Sabbath was made for humanity? Mark 3, beginning at verse 1. "Another time Jesus went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, 'Stand up in front of everyone.' Then Jesus asked him, 'Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?' But they remained silent. He looked around at them in anger and, deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, said to the man, 'Stretch out your hand.' He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus." Again, Jesus faces controversy with the religious leaders over the Sabbath. Notice, however, that the controversy is never over the Sabbath day itself. The religious leaders want to accuse Jesus if he heals on the Sabbath. Jesus does not shy away from confronting them. He sets up a contrast between doing good or doing harm, saving life or killing. The answer to this lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.